Be me, Earl. 30s, work in IT for a generic tech company, the kind with a bland logo and a mission statement about innovating synergistic solutions. It pays the bills. For years, the job was actually pretty decent. It was the perfect gig for an introvert. Come in, put on my headphones, solve complex problems that baffled everyone else, collect my paycheck, go home. No drama, no office politics, just code, coffee, and quiet competence. My team was a small group of guys who were all on the same wavelength. We communicated in bug reports and Simpsons quotes. Our old boss was a guy who just cared about results. As long as the systems were running, he didn't care what we did. It was a well-oiled machine, a peaceful existence. Then he retired, and the company hired Kimberly. She wasn't from a tech background. Her resume was all in HR and corporate culture development. From day one, everything changed. Her first all-hands meeting wasn't about our projects or goals. It was a 90-minute presentation on her vision for the department's social footprint. She used a lot of words that sounded important, but meant nothing. Leveraging authenticity, fostering brave spaces, interrogating our implicit biases. Me and my work buddy Fred just sat in the back, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. Fred's the only guy I really talk to at work. He's been there as long as I have, seen it all. He has a finely tuned radar for corporate nonsense. Within a week, the office started to feel different. Posters went up in the break room with smiling stock photo people and slogans like, "Diversity is our strength." We got a mandatory email signature template that included our pronouns and a link to the company's equity statement. Anytime someone questioned a new, inefficient workflow she introduced, she'd get this tight, pained look on her face. She'd say something like, "I'm hearing a lot of resistance to change, and we need to unpack why that is." It was impossible to have a normal conversation. Everything became a potential landmine. Then Renee started to become her star pupil. Renee was on the marketing side of our team, always seemed a bit desperate for attention. She saw which way the wind was blowing and immediately latched on to Kimberly. Suddenly, Renee was an expert on social justice. She'd gently correct people in the team chat. Someone would say, "Hey guys, the server is down." And Renee would pop in with, "Friendly reminder to use inclusive language. Folks or team is a great alternative." She'd bring up articles she read about emotional labor in meetings. Kimberly would just beam at her, nodding enthusiastically. "Thank you for sharing that, Renee. That's a very important perspective." It felt like living in a weird, corporate-sponsored re-education camp. Productivity, of course, went right into the toilet. Projects were delayed because Kimberly would insist on multiple pre-mortem inclusivity reviews to make sure our software architecture wasn't perpetuating harmful systems. Nobody knew what that meant, so we just nodded and added another 2 weeks to the timeline. Fred and I developed a system of silent communication. A raised eyebrow during a meeting meant, "You hearing this crap?" A subtle nod meant, "Yep, just smile and wait for it to be over." We survived by staying invisible. Head down, work done, no opinions offered. This went on for several months. The office morale was at an all-time low. People were quiet, withdrawn. The friendly banter was gone. The jokes were gone. Everyone was just trying to get through the day without ending up in Renee's crosshairs or on Kimberly's people-to-watch list. So, one week, it was particularly rough. Kimberly decided our team needed to do a privilege walk exercise during our weekly meeting. We all had to stand in a line and take a step forward or backward based on questions she read from a script. It was the most cringe-inducing, uncomfortable hour of my professional life. I just wanted the week to end. Finally, Friday rolls around. I get home, exhausted. All I want to do is decompress, turn my brain off, and not think about work for 2 days. I'm sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone. My cat, a ridiculously dumb but lovable orange tabby, decides to entertain himself. He finds an empty shipping box I'd left on the floor and manages to cram himself inside it. He's just sitting there, this little orange head poking out, looking incredibly proud of himself. A moment later, the mailman walks up the path to my front door. The cat sees him through the window and his whole body tenses up. He puffs out his chest, tries to look big and intimidating from inside his cardboard fort. It was a genuinely funny, silly moment. Without thinking much of it, I took a picture. I have a personal social media account, mostly for keeping in touch with a few college friends and family. It's not connected to my work in any way. I don't even use my full name. I posted the picture with a caption, something totally innocuous. My fierce predator defending his fortress from the mailman. He identifies as a threat. I thought it was a clever, harmless little joke, a play on words using current slang. I got a couple of LOL reactions from my friends, and then I completely forgot about it. I enjoyed my weekend, went for a hike, worked on my car, played some video games. For 48 glorious hours, I didn't think about Kimberly, Renee, or the brave space of my office. Then came Monday morning. I walked into the building, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. It was even quieter than usual. People were at their desks, but nobody was talking. I saw a few people glance at me and then quickly look away. Strange. I got to my desk and started my computer. A few minutes later, I saw Renee walk out of Kimberly's glass-walled office. She had this look on her face, a mixture of smug satisfaction and righteous indignation. She made a point of looking directly at me as she walked back to her desk. My stomach dropped. I knew instantly that something was wrong, and I knew it involved her. Fred must have seen it too. He rolled his chair over to my cubicle, keeping his voice low. "Hey man, you all right? The vibe in here is super weird today." I just shook my head. "I don't know. Just saw Renee coming out of Kimberly's office looking like she'd just won the lottery." Fred's face went pale. "Dude, she was in there for almost half an hour. She had her phone out, showing Kimberly something. They both kept looking over in this direction." A cold dread washed over me. My mind started racing. What could it be? An email? A line of code I wrote? A comment I made last week? Then it hit me. The post, the cat picture. No, it couldn't be. That's insane. Who would even be looking at my personal account? It had to be Renee. She must have somehow found my profile and had been stalking it, just waiting for something, anything she could use. I felt sick. For the next hour, I just sat there, staring at my screen, pretending to work. My heart was pounding in my chest. Every time a new email notification popped up, I flinched. I was just waiting for the axe to fall. And then it did. An email from Kimberly. Subject: Urgent team huddle, conference room B, mandatory attendance. This was it. I looked over at Fred. He just gave me a look that said, "Good luck." I got up and walked towards the conference room, like a man walking to the gallows. The whole team was already there, sitting around the big table. Nobody was talking. The silence was deafening. Renee was sitting right next to the empty chair at the head of the table, where Kimberly would sit. She had her notebook open and was avoiding everyone's gaze, feigning professionalism. Kimberly walked in a moment later. She closed the door behind her. The click of the latch echoed in the silent room. She didn't sit down. She stood at the front of the room, her hands clasped behind her back. She started to speak, addressing the room as a whole, but I could feel her eyes on me. "Good morning, team. I've called this meeting because we need to address a serious issue that impacts the very foundation of our team's culture." Her voice was calm, measured, like a surgeon about to perform a difficult operation. "As you know, I've worked very hard since I joined this department to cultivate an environment of psychological safety and mutual respect. A brave space where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued." She paused for dramatic effect. "It is a fragile ecosystem, and it requires constant vigilance to protect it from elements that seek to undermine it, whether consciously or unconsciously." My hands were clammy. I could feel sweat trickling down my back. "It has been brought to my attention," she continued, her eyes finally locking onto mine, "that some individuals are not aligned with these core values, that they are engaging in behavior, even outside of work, that creates a hostile and unwelcoming atmosphere." I could see the confusion on some of my coworkers' faces. They had no idea what was happening. Fred was just staring at the table, his knuckles white. Then Kimberly picked up the remote for the projector. She clicked a button. The screen behind her lit up, and there it was. A giant screenshot of my social media post, my cat. In his box, the caption, "My fierce predator defending his fortress from the mailman he identifies as a threat," was blown up to a massive font size. A collective, quiet gasp went through the room. My brain just froze. I couldn't process it. This was not happening. Kimberly let the image hang there for a few seconds, letting the gravity of my crime sink in. "Now, some of you might look at this and see a harmless joke," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "But we need to look deeper. We need to unpack the language being used here." She pointed at the screen. The use of the word predator. This is a loaded term, often used to normalize aggressive and dominant behaviors. In the context of our ongoing discussions about toxic masculinity, this is highly problematic. My jaw was on the floor. I literally could not believe what I was hearing. She wasn't done. And then we have this phrase, identifies as a threat. This is quite frankly a flagrant and deeply offensive mockery of an individual's right to self-identify. It belittles the struggles of marginalized communities and turns their experience into a punchline. She was dissecting a joke about a cat like it was a piece of enemy propaganda. This is not the kind of humor we will tolerate. This is the kind of passive-aggressive, insidious content that, if left unchecked, poisons the well. It makes people feel unsafe. It tells them that their identity is a joke. I looked around the room. Everyone was frozen, a mix of shock, fear, and disbelief on their faces. Nobody dared to speak. Nobody dared to move. They were all terrified that if they defended me, they'd be next. I finally found my voice. It came out as a weak croak. "Kimberly, it's a cat. It's a joke about my cat sitting in a box." She turned to me, her eyes like chips of ice. "And that is exactly the problem, Earl. You don't even see the harm you're causing. Your privilege is blinding you to the impact of your words." She turned back to the team. "This department cannot move forward and thrive with this kind of toxicity in its midst. We have a zero-tolerance policy for behavior that undermines our commitment to inclusivity and safety." She took a deep breath. "For that reason, Earl's employment with this company is terminated, effective immediately." Silence. Absolute, profound silence. The only sound was the hum of the projector fan. She looked at me one last time. "HR will be in contact with you to arrange for you to collect your personal belongings. I'd like you to leave the premises now." Then she turned her back on me, a clear signal that I was dismissed, not just from my job, but from her reality. I just sat there for a second, completely stunned. I looked at Fred. He looked horrified, helpless. I looked at Renee. She was staring down at her notebook, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. She had done it. She had gotten her kill. Slowly I stood up. Every eye in the room was on me, but not on me. They were looking past me, through me, at the floor, at the ceiling, anywhere but at the guy who had just been publicly executed. I didn't say another word. I turned and walked out of the conference room. Walking back to my desk to grab my keys and wallet felt like the longest, most humiliating walk of my entire life. I could feel their eyes on my back. I was no longer a colleague. I was a contamination, a problem that had been removed. I walked out of that building and didn't look back. I sat in my car in the parking lot for what felt like an hour, just replaying the scene in my head. Fired for a cat meme. Publicly shamed in front of my entire team for a stupid, silly joke. The shock started to wear off, and something else took its place. A cold, burning anger. This wasn't just unfair. It was insane. It was a perversion of everything. She hadn't done this to make the workplace safer. She had done it to make an example of someone, to consolidate her power, to show everyone what happens when you don't fall in line. And Renee, she had handed her the weapon. I drove home in a daze. My career, my livelihood, my reputation, all gone because of a picture of a cat in a box. I got home, walked into my living room, and saw the box still sitting on the floor. My cat was asleep on the couch, oblivious. I sat down and just stared into space. What was I going to do? How do you explain this in a job interview? Yeah, I was fired from my last job because my boss said my cat was perpetuating toxic masculinity. They'd think I was a lunatic. My professional life was over. I felt completely powerless, beaten. They had all the power. The corporation, the HR department, the manager with an agenda. I was just one guy. What could I do? I spent the rest of the day in a fog of disbelief and rage. But as the hours passed, the rage started to solidify into something else. Resolve. They thought they could just erase me. They thought I would just crawl away in shame and disappear. They were wrong. They wanted to make me an example? Fine. I was going to make an example out of them. I wasn't going to be silent. I opened my laptop. I had the screenshot of my post. I had a crystal clear memory of every single word Kimberly had said. They thought this happened in a closed room. They forgot we live in the age of the internet. They had taken my job and my dignity. I was about to take their carefully crafted public image and burn it to the ground. I pulled up Reddit. I knew exactly where I was going to post my story. I started to type, and I didn't hold anything back. I found a subreddit that was perfect, a place where people share stories of workplace madness. I gave the post a simple factual title, something like "Fired for a Cat Meme." Boss called it "Patriarchal Aggression" and did it in front of my whole team. I started writing the body of the post. My goal was to be as clinical and unemotional as possible. I knew that if I sounded like I was whining or exaggerating, people would dismiss it. The facts were so absurd, they didn't need any embellishment. I laid it all out, step by step. The peaceful office environment before Kimberly arrived, her obsession with corporate jargon and brave spaces, the rise of Renee as her loyal enforcer, then the incident. I described the photo of my cat. I typed out the caption verbatim. I attached the photo to the post so everyone could see the problematic content for themselves. Then I detailed the Monday morning meeting. I recounted Kimberly's speech as accurately as I could remember it. The part about the loaded term predator, the mockery of self-identification, the poisoning the well. I wrote about how she did it in front of everyone, the public humiliation, the walk of shame out of the office. I didn't editorialize. I didn't add my own feelings about it. I just presented the evidence, the receipts, as the internet calls them. I proofread it twice, made sure it was clear and concise, and then I hit post. For a minute, nothing happened. My story was just floating out there in the digital ether. I felt a sudden wave of anxiety. What if nobody cared? What if people thought I was in the wrong? I refreshed the page, one upvote, and a comment. "This can't be real. Please tell me this is creative writing." I replied, "I wish it were." I refreshed again, 5 upvotes, another comment. "OP, if this is true, this is the most insane thing I've ever read. Your boss is unhinged." Then a third, "I work in HR, and this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Publicly shaming an employee like that is a massive liability." More upvotes started pouring in, 10, 50, 100. The comments started flooding in faster than I could read them. A strange sense of relief washed over me. I wasn't crazy. My reaction was justified. People were seeing the situation for exactly what it was, a complete abuse of power. I leaned back in my chair and just watched it happen. Within an hour, my post was on the front page of the subreddit. A few hours after that, it hit the main front page of Reddit itself. It was exploding. The story was being cross-posted to other communities. Tech forums, legal advice subs, places dedicated to workplace horror stories. My inbox was flooded with messages of support from strangers all over the world. People sharing their own stories of dealing with corporate ideologues. People offering legal advice. People just saying, "Hang in there, man. You did nothing wrong." It felt good, vindicating. After feeling so isolated and powerless in that conference room, I suddenly felt like I had an army at my back, and that army was just getting started. The memeing began around mid-afternoon. Someone took the picture of my cat and photoshopped a tiny military helmet on his head. The face of patriarchal aggression. Someone else made a version with glowing red eyes. He identifies as a threat. The threat-identifying cat became a thing. My little orange idiot was becoming an internet folk hero. The focus then shifted to the real target. In the comments, the inevitable question came up: what company is this? They need to be named and shamed. I had been careful not to name names in my post. I didn't want to get into legal trouble, but I knew I didn't have to. The internet is an incredible detective agency. People started piecing together the clues. I had mentioned my general industry and a few of Kimberly's favorite buzzwords. Someone dug through my old Reddit comments, looking for any scrap of identifying information. Another group started scouring LinkedIn, searching for female managers in tech who used phrases like brave spaces and unpacking privilege in their profiles. It was terrifying and exhilarating to watch. I just stayed silent and let them work. Around evening, they found her, Someone posted a link to Kimberly's public LinkedIn profile. It was a perfect match. Her job title, the company, the timeline of when she was hired. Her profile was a masterpiece of corporate self-importance. A long, rambling summary about how she was a transformative leader and a champion of disruptive empathy. Her posts were all smug articles about dismantling systemic barriers and photos of her speaking on panels at corporate conferences. Once her identity was confirmed, the floodgates opened. The name of the company spread like wildfire. The story jumped from Reddit to Twitter/X. People started tweeting at the company's official account, demanding to know why they fired an employee over a cat meme. They attached the memes. The patriarchal cat was everywhere. A hashtag started trending in my city. Something like #CompanyCatGate. Then came the assault on the review sites. The company's Glassdoor page, which had a respectable 4.2-star rating, was nuked from orbit. Dozens, then hundreds of one-star reviews appeared. Hostile work environment. Management is unstable and will fire you for having a sense of humor. I was told my lunch was an act of culinary aggression. Would not recommend. My cat read the job description, and now he identifies as unemployed. 0 out of 10. The CEO is a cat-hating tyrant who doesn't understand jokes. Avoid at all costs. It was a digital carpet bombing. Kimberly's personal social media became ground zero. Her very professional, very curated LinkedIn page became a war zone. Every one of her self-congratulatory posts about leadership was inundated with comments. How does it feel to be a global laughingstock? Great leadership. Firing a competent employee for a joke to feel powerful is peak management skill. And, of course, hundreds and hundreds of pictures of cats. Cats in boxes, cats in hats, angry cats, sleepy cats. She tried to delete the comments, but for every one she deleted, 10 more appeared. She tried to set her profile to private, but people had already taken screenshots of everything. Her entire professional persona was being publicly dismantled, piece by piece, by an anonymous mob armed with cat pictures. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction watching it unfold. This is what she wanted, right? A public spectacle. She had wanted to publicly shame me to enforce her authority. Now the public was shaming her for her own stupidity. The irony was delicious. Late that night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "It's Fred. Got your number from the old team contact list. You will not believe what's happening here." I saved his number and texted back immediately. "Tell me everything." His reply came a second later. "Total chaos. The VP of our entire division flew in this afternoon. He's been in a closed-door meeting with Kimberly and the head of HR for hours. You can hear them shouting through the door." My heart skipped a beat. "The PR team is having a meltdown. The company's main Twitter account has been locked. They can't stop the flood of negative messages." He sent another text. "And Renee, oh man, you should see her. She's been ghost white all day. She keeps looking around like she expects a mob with pitchforks to burst through the door. Everyone knows she's the one who snitched on you. Nobody will even look at her." I had to admit, that part felt particularly good. Fred continued. "Kimberly tried to address the team this afternoon. She called a quick huddle, said we were being targeted by a malicious online harassment campaign and that we needed to show solidarity. Nobody said a word. The silence was deafening. She just stood there for a minute and then walked back to her office and slammed the door. Hasn't come out since. So her own team, the people she was supposedly protecting, had turned on her. They hadn't defended me in the meeting, but their silence now was a verdict in itself. Fred's final text for the night was the one that really stuck with me. "Whatever happens, man, you've already won. You exposed this place for what it is. You pulled the curtain back." I turned off my phone and sat in the dark. In the morning, I had been a victim, unemployed, humiliated, powerless. Now, I wasn't sure what I was. I had unleashed a storm that was far bigger than me. I hadn't asked for this fight, but they had started it, and I was starting to realize that I had the power to finish it. The next morning, I woke up to find the story had gone even further. A couple of online tech blogs and even a local news website had written articles about it. They were framing it as a cautionary tale of corporate culture gone wrong. My cat was now officially famous, or infamous. The narrative was set. A normal guy with a normal sense of humor had been crushed by an out-of-control, agenda-driven manager. I was the underdog, the relatable everyman. Kimberly was the villain, a walking caricature of everything people hated about modern corporate life. I spent most of the day just monitoring the situation. I didn't post anything else. I didn't need to. The fire was burning on its own now. I started thinking about my next steps. People on Reddit had been screaming at me to get a lawyer. I wasn't sure if I had a case. I lived in an at-will employment state. They could fire me for any reason or no reason at all. But the public nature of the firing, the defamation, maybe there was something there. I started researching employment lawyers in my area. Around 3 p.m., my phone rang. It was a block number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Hello? Am I speaking with Earl? The voice was professional, a little strained. A woman's voice I didn't recognize. This is he. Earl, my name is some generic name, and I'm the Senior Director of Human Resources for the company. I'm calling regarding the recent end of your employment with us. I stayed silent. Listen, we feel that there may have been a significant misunderstanding in how this situation was handled. A misunderstanding. That's what they were calling it. The company would like to formally apologize for the events that transpired on Monday. The actions taken by your direct manager do not reflect the values or policies of this organization as a whole. She was already throwing Kimberly under the bus. We would like to discuss a way to rectify this situation. To find an amicable solution that works for everyone. I could hear the desperation in her voice. This wasn't a courtesy call. This was a damage control call. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry they got caught. They were sorry that their stock price had taken a small dip that morning. They were sorry that they were now the butt of every joke on the internet. I let the silence hang in the air for a few long seconds. I had them. I'm listening, I said, my voice perfectly calm. The power had shifted completely. I was no longer the guy being lectured in a conference room. I was the guy with all the leverage, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. I held the phone to my ear, listening to the HR director's carefully chosen words. Rectify this situation. Amicable solution. It was the language of a company in full-blown retreat. I decided to let her talk. She went on, explaining that my termination was a procedural error and a misjudgment on the part of a single manager. She was surgically separating Kimberly's actions from the company itself. Her tone was one of forced sympathy, the kind people use when they're reading from a script prepared by lawyers. She mentioned how much they valued my contributions during my years of service. Funny how they never mentioned that before. Finally, she got to the point. She said that as a gesture of goodwill, the company was prepared to offer me a severance package. She named a figure. It was basically 2 weeks' pay. A joke. It was the standard pathetic offer they give to anyone they lay off, hoping they'll be too beaten down to argue. She presented it as if she were bestowing a great gift upon me. I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my voice. I just waited until she was completely finished speaking. Then I said, "That's not going to work for me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I think she was genuinely surprised. She expected me to be grateful. Her voice changed slightly. A bit of the fake sympathy evaporated. "Well, what did you have in mind, Earl?" "I have in mind," I said, keeping my voice level, "that your company, through its manager, publicly humiliated me in front of my peers and fired me based on a complete fabrication. Your brand is currently being torn to shreds online because of it, and you're offering me 2 weeks' pay." I let that hang in the air. "I'm going to need to speak with an employment lawyer before I have any further communication with you or anyone else from the company." I heard a sharp intake of breath on her end. The word lawyer is a magic spell in the corporate world. It instantly changes the dynamic of any conversation. Her tone shifted again, this time to one of panic. "Oh, I don't think we need to involve lawyers, Earl. I'm sure we can come to a very generous arrangement. We are prepared to be flexible. I'll be in touch," I said, and then I hung up. I sat there for a moment, my hand still on the phone. My heart was pounding, but I felt a surge of adrenaline. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt truly in control. The next morning, I did what I said I would. I found a highly rated employment lawyer and scheduled a consultation. I went to his office and laid out the whole story, just as I had on Reddit. I showed him the post, the picture of the cat, the news articles that were starting to pop up. He listened intently, a small smile playing on his lips. When I was finished, he leaned back in his chair. He explained that a straightforward wrongful termination case would be tough, given my state's at-will employment laws. But, he said, that wasn't the real issue here. The real issue was the public nature of the firing. He said I had a very strong case for defamation of character and creating a hostile work environment. Kimberly hadn't just fired me. She had publicly accused me of being a toxic, bigoted individual, which could damage my future employment prospects. He told me the company knew they were in a very bad position, especially with the public backlash. He said they would be desperate to make this go away quickly and quietly. He agreed to represent me. His fee would be a percentage of whatever settlement we got. I had nothing to lose. I walked out of that office feeling 10 feet tall. I had professional firepower on my side now. My lawyer drafted a formal letter to the company's legal department that afternoon. It was a work of art. It outlined our demands in cold, hard legal terms. We didn't just ask for money. We demanded a severance package equivalent to a full year's salary. We demanded the immediate vesting of all my stock options. We demanded a formal letter of recommendation, signed by the division's VP, and a binding agreement that the company would only provide a neutral reference to any future employers. And we demanded one more thing, the part I cared about most. A public statement of apology from the company to be posted on their official social media channels. It had to acknowledge that an employee was wrongfully terminated due to a manager's misinterpretation of a personal social media post. My lawyer told me they would fight hardest on that last point. Corporations hate admitting fault publicly, but he also said it was our strongest point of leverage. We sent the letter and waited. While the corporate gears were turning, I was getting real-time updates from the front lines. Fred was my man on the inside. He texted me the day after my call with HR. Kimberly didn't show up to work today. Her office is dark. Nobody knows what's going on. An hour later, another text. An all-hands email just went out. Kimberly is no longer with the company, effective immediately. I stared at the message. Gone. Just like that. She had been so powerful, so untouchable. And now she was just gone. Fred's next message provided the glorious details. A guy from another department saw her being escorted out by security yesterday evening. They had her carry her stuff out in a cardboard box. A cardboard box. The sheer, beautiful, poetic justice of it all. My cat started this from a box, and Kimberly's career ended in one. You couldn't write a better ending. And what about Renee? Fred's report on her was just as satisfying, in a different way. Renee is a ghost. She just sits at her desk all day, staring at her screen. Nobody talks to her. When she goes to the break room, people literally get up and walk away. She tried to say something in the team chat this morning, and she was completely ignored. She hadn't been fired. She had been rendered irrelevant. Her social climbing had led her to a dead end. She had hitched her wagon to a falling star, and now she was paying the price. There was no public execution for her, just a slow, quiet social death. In a way, it was more fitting. The company took 2 days to respond to my lawyer's letter. Their counteroffer was predictable. They agreed to the money. They agreed to the stock options. They even agreed to the letter of recommendation. But they refused to make a public statement. Instead, they offered a private written apology just for me. My lawyer called me to discuss it. They're trying to buy your silence, Earl. This is the moment of truth. We can take their money and walk away, and this is still a huge win for you. Or we can hold the line on the public apology. It's a risk. They might call our bluff and force us to actually file a lawsuit. I didn't even have to think about it. Hold the line, I said. It's not just about the money. It's about the principle. They did this publicly. They need to fix it publicly. My lawyer sounded pleased. Good man, that's what I was hoping you'd say. We sent back a very short reply. Our initial demands were not negotiable. The silence from their end for the next 24 hours was nerve-wracking. I started to second-guess myself. Had I pushed too hard? Had my pride just cost me a life-changing amount of money? I was pacing around my apartment, trying to distract myself. Then my lawyer called. They folded. I sank onto the couch. They folded like a cheap suit, he said, laughing. Their legal team must have told them what a disaster a public court case would be. They agreed to everything, the full package, including the public statement. We had won. A few days later, I went to my lawyer's office to sign the settlement agreement. a thick stack of papers that officially ended my relationship with the company and put a very healthy sum of money in my bank account. As I was signing the last page, my phone buzzed. It was a link from Fred, with no text. I clicked on it. It took me to the company's official Twitter/X page, and there it was, posted 5 minutes earlier, a formal statement. To our community, we recently became aware of a situation where a manager took inappropriate disciplinary action against an employee based on a misinterpretation of content on a personal social media account. This action was a mistake and does not reflect our company's values. We have taken steps to rectify the error and have parted ways with the manager involved. We are committed to ensuring a fair and respectful work environment for all our employees. It was carefully worded, corporate speak at its finest. They didn't name me, they didn't mention the cat, but they didn't have to. Everyone who had followed the story knew exactly what it meant. It was a public admission of guilt, a complete surrender. Under the post, the comments were already flooding in. Justice for the cat meme guy. Good. Now give him his job back and a promotion. And, of course, hundreds of gifs of my cat, the furry little agent of chaos who had brought a corporation to its knees. I took a screenshot of the apology. That evening, I logged back into Reddit. I went to my original post and added a final update. I wrote that the situation had been resolved to my complete satisfaction. I thanked the community for their incredible support. I said that their voices had made all the difference. I told them that, because of them, a normal guy had a fighting chance against a massive corporation. I ended the post with a simple line: "Please give your pets some extra scratches for me, especially the ones who identify as threats." And with that, I closed the chapter. It's been a few months now. The settlement money means I don't have to rush into finding a new job. I'm taking my time, looking for a company with a sane culture. Fred and I still keep in touch. He says the office is slowly returning to normal. The productivity is up. The fear is gone. People are telling jokes again. Sometimes I think about the sheer absurdity of it all. How a tiny, insignificant moment, a cat, a box, a stupid joke, could trigger a chain of events that would change my life and upend an entire corporate department. It's a strange world. Right now, I'm sitting on my couch, the same one I was on when this whole thing started. My cat, the internet-famous predator, hops up next to me. He's not in a box. He's not defending his fortress. He's just a cat. He curls up purring, completely unaware of the chaos he caused. I just scratch him behind the ears. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to be left alone to do my job. But they wouldn't let me. They pushed, and they found out that even the quietest guy, when pushed too far, can push back. And sometimes, when he does, the whole world pushes with him. And it's a pretty good feeling. Be me. Be free.